Welcome to the 700 Club. Dreamers and Democrats are calling it a victory. They're celebrating the Supreme Court's latest decision regarding the DACA program for young immigrants.
For President Trump, it's the second time in a week that the justices have ruled against his administration. So how does the president plan to push back? Paul Strand has the story.
Here to stay! Here to stay!
The court's latest decision is a long-awaited win for Dreamers, young immigrants whose parents brought them to the U.S. The DACA program has given them temporary legal status, allowing them to attend college and work.
I came to this country at the age of 5. I am now 20 years old. Majority of my life has been spent in the United States. I am an American.
3 years ago, President Trump moved to end the Obama-era program, but yesterday the court threw up a roadblock, citing administrative and procedural errors. Many Dreamers and Democrats consider that a victory.
Today's decision means a lot to me. It means a lot to my fellow brothers and sisters that are also DACA recipients.
These wonderful DACA kids and their families have a huge burden lifted off their shoulders. They don't have to worry about being deported. They can do their jobs.
But the ruling provides no permanent solution. DACA only grants 2-year work permits, and the president may still move to end it. Many evangelical leaders, like Pastor Sam Rodriguez and the Southern Baptist Dr. Russell Moore, are calling on Congress to create some kind of permanent legal status for Dreamers.
We hope Congress won't see this decision as an out for them, but actually will more urgently take this up. Underscores the need for broader reform.
More than 600,000 young immigrants have enrolled in DACA, and many of them provide essential services, as activist Liz Dong explained on Faith Nation.
Dreamers contribute to this country. We call this country home. There have been more than 29,000 reports show of DACA recipients that have been serving on the front lines in healthcare.
On Thursday, the president called the ruling horrible and politically charged. But rather than admit defeat with a court that includes 2 of his nominees, he shot back, vowing to release a new list of potential nominees just in time for November's election. The court's decision ultimately pushes the issue back to the Trump administration and Congress, and it's certain will highlight it as a campaign issue in an election year unlike any other. Paul Strand, CBN News, the Supreme Court.
Well, I think we need to come up with a solution for Dreamers. There are roughly 650,000 of them in America. And what they are is they were brought here as children. It was no fault of their own, but they've grown up in America. There needs to be a pathway for them to find citizenship, to be able to live here permanently and not live under some kind of fear that they could be deported based on the change of administration. The Obama administration came up with this solution because they couldn't get a bill through Congress. And then President Trump is trying to dismantle that. Now the Supreme Court says you can't dismantle it. It all falls back to Congress, and they need to do something and say, let's find a pathway forward for these 650,000 young people. They're Americans now, and might as well have the law recognize that. Well, in other news, Senate Democrats were emboldened by Monday's Supreme Court decision redefining the word sex. So they pushed forward a controversial bill that would elevate gay rights above religious rights. John Jessup has more on that story.
Thanks, Gordon. Every Senate Democrat, joined by 2 independents and Republican Susan Collins of Maine, called for a vote on the Equality Act. The bill passed in the House last year. It would extend protections for LGBTQ individuals over the rights of religious groups, like forcing faith-based adoption agencies to place kids with same-sex couples. Senator James Lankford joined with Republicans Josh Hawley and Mike Lee in blocking the vote.
The Equality Act says that if you're a faith-based adoption agency that only places children in the home where there's a mom and dad there, then you either have to change your faith or close.
Critics of the Equality Act say it would weaken the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, a 1994 law which protects religious liberty. Well, the Oklahoma Supreme Court will decide whether President Trump can hold an indoor campaign rally in Tulsa Saturday night. It would be his first one since the COVID-19 lockdown. Tulsa residents sought an injunction against the event, fearing an outbreak of the coronavirus amid a spike in cases there. Trump supporters, though, have been lining up outside the 19,000-seat BOK Center for days. Most say they're not afraid of catching the virus. The campaign is offering masks, hand sanitizer, and temperature checks to attendees. BOK facility staffers will also clean and disinfect high-touch areas throughout the rally. Meanwhile, thousands of people are expected in Tulsa tonight to celebrate the day marking the liberation of African Americans from slavery. It's called Juneteenth. As our nation confronts race relations, it's becoming a much more important holiday to recognize. Still, many Americans don't know much about it. Jennifer Wishon brings us this historical look.
Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation that freed slaves in January of 1863. 2.5 years later, on June 19, 1865, the news finally reached Galveston, Texas. A Union general read the order aloud. All slaves are free.
Essentially, slavery ended on that day.
Newly freed people celebrated at their church.
It's really been a story that Galveston has been able to try to get out for years.
The day became known as Juneteenth.
Juneteenth is actually the day that African Americans can celebrate their independence. So, with all of the conversation around racial equality and justice in the United States, a lot of people are turning to Juneteenth as a symbol, as a way they can celebrate and honor the sacrifices that African Americans have made.
What do we want? Justice! What do we want it? Now!
The police killing of George Floyd and the protests that followed have raised the holiday's profile. Now a number of businesses are declaring it a holiday, including Nike, Twitter, and Target. Some states are doing the same.
I'm going to sign an executive order today, hence all my pens, recognizing Juneteenth as a holiday for state employees.
Inside the U.S. Capitol, Speaker Nancy Pelosi ordered the removal of portraits of former speakers who were members of the Confederacy.
So this is why more and more people are talking about it, because frankly, a lot of people didn't know it exists.
Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
Thank you, Jennifer. Turning overseas now to Israel, where a new discovery reveals more about how people lived during the time of Jesus. As Chris Mitchell reports, it involves an underground system located in an unusual place.
Even though the Western Wall remains under COVID-19 restrictions, archaeologists are still at work. This latest dig deep underneath the entrance to the Western Wall tunnels uncovered a unique treasure dating back to the time of Jesus. From the outside, this might look like any modern white door, but open it up, and it's a gateway into history. Like much of Jerusalem, one civilization is built on another. It's even carved into the bedrock.
Most of the buildings that we know from this time period were stone built, were on the street level. And in here we're finding, this really impressive and unique rock cut system.
The rock cut system from Second Temple times was completely covered by a Byzantine-era mosaic floor that was part of a monumental public structure built about 1,400 years ago. It was renovated about 150 years later.
Last January, we started to excavate and we started to dismantle the mosaic itself in order to find the earlier remains to this building.
Dr. Barak Monakandam Givon, the site's co-director, says archaeologists noticed a great attention to detail in the subterranean structure.
And those details showed us that this system was used on a daily basis. It may have been used as a pantry, so people stored their grocery or olive oil or wheat and barley, or what is more possible, that it was used, for daily life. People actually lived here.
The site is located about half a football field from the Temple Mount and only 40 feet from the huge bridge that connected ancient uptown Jerusalem to the Temple Mount.
Basically, what we have here is a window to the way the women, men, and children of ancient Jerusalem during the time of the temple lived. And we're finding here a very unique way of living that was not really familiar to archaeologists working on this time period or in this area.
Artifacts from the dig also attest to the Jewish history here, like this chalk cup. Other finds included the rim of a huge, expensive pot, like the one at the wedding in Cana when Jesus turned the water into wine. The revelation came on the eve of the Jerusalem Day anniversary, when Israel reunited the city and regained control over the Temple Mount just 53 years ago. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, underground near the Western Wall, Jerusalem.
Some amazing finds. Thanks, Chris. Gordon, I don't think Chris could have described it any better when he said it was a gateway to history.
It is a gateway to history. Literally, you can turn over a rock in Israel today and you find proof of the Bible. We can't go to the Holy Land now because of COVID-19, but CBN, we've got a new film called Written in Stone. It's available right now, and you'll get a tour. You'll get a tour of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Church of the Nativity, Capernaum. You can see the sites that prove that Jesus walked in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. You can get the DVD or watch it through streaming with a gift of any dollar amount. All you have to do is call us 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/writteninstone. You can also text us. You can text the word stone to 51555.